Okay, this is Frontier Opening Bell. I am boasting number 5 for today, the 1st of January. It's a Thursday. Thank you, Agnes Gital, the managing partner at GBS Africa. Thanks for coming through on the show. Great to have you. Let's take a look at a very quick rundown of the market. You can see 4 green shoots and 1 negative reading for the South African GSE by 45 basis points yesterday. Nigerian market came back a bit stronger after we saw Nestle, the largest consumer goods company by price, at 1,540, where the market closed, with the recent buying from Nestle SA from Switzerland, boosting that particular stock. In BRVM, the market ACAS 0.02%. Egyptian market was better by 1.32%. Some big names gave the Egyptian market a strong comeback, and Nairobi's market 173.53 when the market closed. Look at some of the top stories from within the East Africa. The holding company for Serena Hotels, that's the TPS Eastern Africa, says it's planning a rights issue of about 200 million ordinary shares. And you look at the numbers from the Capuchurity, which is for 2021, by the way, profit after tax declined 64%. Serengeti Breweries is supporting the fight of the COVID-19 disease in Tanzania, putting about 2.3 billion local currencies on the table. That's a whole lot of corporate social responsibility. And AA Global Logistics is fighting the termination of its port operations in the port of Mombasa. That's a legal fight with the authorities. They're going into some legal tussle down there. And Sudan's getting a whole lot more of sunshine. This time, the IMF is opening a 3-year funding window, $2.5 billion on the back of the $56 billion relief of debt for this Sahel country. Let me get your thoughts on any of these headlines this morning from the East African and Horn of Africa corridor, Agnes.
Good morning, boss. And allow me to start with the Sudan story. The headline that IMF okays $2.5 billion for their 3-year funding. I think this coincides with protests that we saw yesterday, with Sudanese really wary with the IMF back into the country. It means they're going to be really tough conditions for the interim government. But certainly Sudan back to the international fold. There's commitment to support Sudan's economic recovery post Bashir, post-COVID, and there's been so many offers from different countries who are really looking to support this country. To date, we have about $10 billion debt cancellation, and this was announced back in May during the Africa Finance Summit that was hosted by President Macron. So exciting news for Sudan. However, as you know, with the Bretton Woods institutions in the country, it means they'll be very tough on government spending. They'll be very careful looking at the state-owned enterprises, focusing on efficiency and effectiveness, and obviously cutting costs on a lot of public expenditure. Hence, the protest yesterday from some Sudanese. These are the second protests we've seen since Bashir left power some years back. So, interesting time for the country. I think the leadership has the right focus. However, they need to bring in the citizens on board because the future for Sudan looks good, and I think it's great to welcome this great nation back to the international fold. The other story on TPS Eastern Africa, these are the owners of Serena Hotels, one of the biggest hotel chains in the continent. They obviously have struggled like many other hospitality sector businesses due to COVID, and this rights issue perhaps is trying to support the group into recovery. Prospect that business will grow with some of the sectors opening up, and also looking at the summer holidays. Hopefully, travelers and travel corridors will be open, and people can return to hotels and and tourism sites that are owned by this group. An interesting one on Kapchura tea. There's been so much demand for Kenyan tea in the UK and elsewhere. I'm very surprised. They were doing very well back in April. They posted some positive, but I'm very concerned that there is a drop. Hopefully, the British will continue taking Kenyan tea and they can perhaps support capture. A great story from Serengeti Breweries supporting Tanzania to fund COVID crisis in the country after finally President Suluhu admitted that COVID actually exists. Remember, before Samia Magufuli was on that focus that COVID didn't exist and they could pray it away. So suddenly with this government focus and policy on fighting COVID, we've seen a lot of initiative, not only by corporates but also international institutions supporting the country. And I think they've received some funding towards vaccination and control of the pandemic. Good times, I guess, and it's great to see Serengeti Breweries. It's not just about drinking alcohol. It's great to see them doing something good for the Tanzanians.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Agnes. But again, let's talk a little bit about some of the corporate news from the West Coast because we've got a few of the forecasts for the first half of the year and the third quarter coming through from the likes of Vitafoam, which is, of course, the big name when it comes to making beds and mattresses and things like that. Flamis is one of the largest consumer goods, also into a lot of agro-allied business, backward integration in Nigeria, very rich portfolio of brands in Nigeria. That's a very big number, 771 billion naira in revenue, net profit in double digits of about 38 billion local currency. But I'm sure today, Agnes, you're looking at the OPEC meeting, the whole virus, Delta variant, wave 3 coming through. Namibia is under some pressure. The Zimbabweans have tightened their corridors against South Africa migrating in or out because of the level 4 lockdown. So demand for oil was going to be a little bit very difficult when OPEC will decide later today. We'll get what their decision will be to supply more oil into the market. But the outlook doesn't look really okay because of this. The airline industry now cutting back and looking like it's not likely going to be a very pretty summer in which all the airlines will be back in the skies. What's your take, Agnes?
When you think it's all over with this pandemic, it starts all over again. It's this variant, it's now Delta variant. In the UK now we have Matt Hancock variant, the kissing variant. It is when you think it's all over, then it starts all over again. Everybody was looking towards the summer holidays when the whole all global economies will be open. Obviously, an impact on all sectors and all sectors, sadly. But it's interesting to see on the Nigeria headlines, the Engie Energy investing 200 billion naira in mini grids. Do you have any insights on that, Boston, and what that means for the country?
Well, in terms of what I think this is one of those attempts that try to break down the stranglehold on the national grid and break it down. The whole tight coupling, in a manner of speaking, for energy in Nigeria is not going to work. The country is so large, it's so diverse. You have a number of energy sources like gas, you have solar at some places, you can do geothermal and all of that. I think it's only wind that we don't really have as much as have in Kenya around the Turkana region and all of that. So for Nigeria, we have at least 3 to 4 alternative energy sources. If you add biofuels, which we get from cassava, from jatropha from sugarcane and what have you, you find out that we have an abundant energy resources. We just really haven't been able to break them down. But I think the mini grids are coming through to say, look, we can break it all down. It makes it easier and faster to build these projects and deliver energy solutions. And I think the EFDB spoke about it a couple of years ago, that for a normal size of the kind of projects that you're doing with the Inga Dam in Congo DRC or the Renaissance Dam projects that the Ethiopians are doing, it takes an average of 12 years to get it completed. Now, if you look at the energy needs in Africa, you can't wait for 12 years. In fact, you could hardly wait for 2 years because The needs are choking for small and medium enterprises, for households, for rural electrification is so a lot of a hindrance. The cost to SMEs, and I've spoken to a lot of folks in the banking sector, top executives in the banking sector over the last couple of days on television, spoke with some of them who are also in advisory, such as Pricewaterhouse. And the whole angst is that, look, a major chunk of the SMEs in Nigeria, the costs go into energy. If you go across a number of countries in Africa, it's also the same. So if we can break it all down to mini grids and break the regulation that tight couples everybody together and allows it to be broken down, I think the better for everyone, if you ask me. So that takes us to Southern Africa, by the way, Agnes, because ESCOM this morning was making some announcement about 104 billion rand. I think that's about 10 billion US dollars to transit from coal energy in South Africa to clean energy. And according to the news report, they're getting the World Bank and the AFDB to discuss that before the COP26 climate change conference in Glasgow. What's your take on these South African issues,
I
Agnes?
thought we were saying goodbye to coal. I mean, there is. Thank you, Boston. I beg your pardon. The coal energy
I think that's what ESCOM wants. ESCOM wants to start
exiting.
exiting
You're absolutely right.
coal energy,
But
right?
I've also seen some headlines whereby some countries, particularly Western countries, are saying, look, it's not all over for coal energy. And perhaps for us in the African continent, as you talked about the energy deficit and the impact it is to the cost of doing businesses, perhaps even in the fight of net zero commitment, we need to be allowed to explore some of these resources that are available to us, particularly coal, as long as it's done well and it's done sustainably, so certainly you don't impact the environment. But you're right, there is a focus on green energy, and it is going to be the rate for the next decade or so, where companies and governments are focusing due to the Paris Climate Change Agreement, are focusing on cutting carbon emissions, and so that we can protect our environment. As I think the latest news from the US is that the next crisis will be climate change, climate related. So therefore, as you can see, the focus on exiting these fossil fuels and focusing on renewable energy. And I think East Africa is a leader on this. And commenting back on your statement on the cost of doing business, and which is really impacted by the cost of energy, is always a shock for me, particularly in a country like Nigeria, where you have so much resources, yet completely unable to manage your energy resources so that you can make it easier for businesses to perform. But yes, certainly exiting coal and into green energy, I think us in East Africa can lend a story or two to that.
But you see, the whole conversation around climate change and all of that will continue, because when you look at the top of some of the top stories from the North African corridor, if you take out the markets, well, if you stick with the market, by the way, because the green bond that the Egyptian financial regulatory authorities have given approval to is for that commercial international bank, to issue the first green bond. So we're not leaving the whole everybody wants to get in on this climate change, climate adaptation, biodiversity conversation, and investment right now. If you're not on this particular bandwagon, you're going to look like the bad guy anytime soon.
It's called responsible capitalism. And I think because for the longest we have completely deprived and hurt our environment. And we are paying the price, and generations to come are going to pay the price. So I think it's the owners is owners, the corporate leaders, government leaders, to ensure that we conserve the environment so that generations to come have something to hold on to. And certainly it's great, and like this green bond issue will be one to look out to, so that countries, and I think their prospect, Kenya has also indicated they're desperate to borrow money. So €1 bond is not enough. So they've indicated they might explore green bond. There is also, I think Seychelles last year issued a blue economy bond. So there's been some very innovative financing solutions coming out from all sectors, really focusing on green energy and green and environmental focus and all that related to responsible capitalism.
One news we're looking at from Nigeria today, I'm sure you're keeping one eye on Nigeria all the time. You have some business interests in Nigeria out of the UK as well, is the petroleum industry bill. The Nigeria's parliament is looking at considering various committees' reports today, put them all together. They've made a lot of promises since the start of the year, but now let's see whether today is the finishing line for Nigeria to make history in passing the petroleum industry bill. It's taken many years of redrafting and getting kicked around the cabin, as it were. But it looks like we're now at the finishing line. Let's hope today
Good luck on
is
that.
the
And what does the
finish
bill
line.
entail, Boston? And I think perhaps I
Thank
can
you.
add to the fact that our colleagues at the East African Arbitration Conference and us are hosting an energy forum next week, which is really focused on the energy sector, the trends, the development, and some of the dispute areas. Again, really looking at areas, particularly in renewable energy, oil and gas. And also electricity. That would be an interesting one to watch. But certainly, do you have any insights on the petroleum bill and what that entails?
Well, I think it's gone through way too many revisions and reviews and all of that, that until the final version is released to us, you never can tell what is in the details. The devil is in the details. So let's just hope that by tomorrow, also they pass the bill today, Thursday, the 1st of July, then we get to look at what the details are in terms of what Mr. President has sent to the National Assembly a couple of months ago, which is now being debated. If that is the real omnibus, the kind of that legislation that will help Nigerians. But again, if we're not very careful on this side of the world, South Africans are looking to their own petroleum industry bill passage by next year. So if we miss this final line, as it were, with the whole changes going on in the world of oil into clean energy and what have you, we might just be left behind. But again, you can't have an East African conference, Agnes, you and your team,
Oh,
without mentioning
I
Nigeria.
must
Nigeria
add
will
that we
always
have
be a reference.
NNPC, the Nigeria Petroleum Corporation, Mr. Ahmed Khalid, is going to give us an
Okay.
update on the oil and gas sector and how Nigeria is doing in that area. Perhaps he can talk a little bit on the petroleum bill. But yeah, we look out for that and all the best. And I do hope
Yes.
that the implementation of it. So passing a bill is one thing. But then how does the industry and all the stakeholders implement that? So one to look out for. Thank you, Boston.
Most critical. Thank you so much, Agnes Gital, managing partner at GBS Africa. Thank you very much. I'm one of our partners here on Frontier Africa Reports. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye for now.